Time magazine. Vincent, how much trouble is Houston in now going to Utah, where they seldom lose, down 0-2 in that series to the Jazz?
Well, you know, after game one, I spoke to an exec who said that it looked like the junior varsity was playing the varsity. And, you know, although they were more competitive in game two, they still faced that unenviable task of going into Utah, where Utah was 37-4 throughout the whole regular season, and looking at needing to split that, the remaining games, winning 2 games in Utah to win the series. So at the very least, it seems like it's going to be a Herculean task, something that, unfortunately for the Rockets, they may not be up to.
How about the Wizards right now? They had a lot of that pre-series trash talk going on with the Cavaliers. Has that had an impact here? The Cavs obviously up 2-0 in that series as well.
Yeah, well, you know, the Cavs really did what they were supposed to do, which is win both games in Cleveland, you know, albeit they did it in a convincing fashion. But I was speaking with a guy inside the Wizards organization, and he said that basically LeBron did in games 1 and 2 what he had done all season. And that speaks to how good and great LeBron is, but it also speaks to how the Wizards feel as though there might have been a little bit too much made of that pre-series hype. Their thinking hasn't changed. They think that it's going to be a long series, and quiet as kept, everybody in that Wizards organization not only thinks that they can win this series, but they actually think that they can come out of the East. So their confidence hasn't swayed at all.
Uphill battle for them, no doubt. Let's go out west again. Chris Paul's Hornets trying to take a 2-0 lead over the Mavs tonight. Just how good is Chris Paul?
Yeah, well, you know, I spoke to the Hornets GM, Jeff Bauer, about that, because I wanted to see how good he really thinks this young dude is, you know, and put it into some context. What's he sitting on? So I asked him, throughout history, if he could trade Chris Paul for any other point guard, non-Magic Johnson point guard in history, would he at least consider it? And, you know, almost before I could finish the question, he said flat out no. And then I went down the list, you know, Isaiah Nash, Kidd, Cousy. He said he wouldn't even consider it, and he went so far as to say that he believes that Chris Paul is going to be the greatest non-Magic point guard ever, and I agree with him. Not that he might be if a bunch of unforeseen, you know, variables take place. That's the trajectory that this young man is on right now, and that's probably why Jason Kidd and Jason Terry didn't get too much sleep last night.
Yeah, he's been fun to watch, just 1 game in so far in the playoffs. We hear about the stars, the role players when it comes postseason time, but I guess there's a new term this playoff season. What is a franchise role player?
Yeah, it's actually a term that my brother Tony came up with, and we were discussing some things. And if you take it's not for every role player, but if you take role players, for instance, like a Tyson Chandler or a Marcus Camby or Rasheed Wallace, even somebody, you know, to their surprise as a Tony Parker, and specifically a Lamar Odom, they perform their roles so well, and they have so much impact as a role player, you know, outside of that 1 or 2 of that first or second option, that they actually become as valuable as a franchise player. So just like there are all-stars in this league, and within that group there are franchise players, well, out of the role player subsets, there are also franchise role players, and Lamar Odom being chief among them with what he's done since the Paul Gasol trade. He's overshadowed, and he goes a little bit unnoticed sometimes, but he's really exceptional in that role that he plays with the Lakers.
At least come playoff time, and I hope I'm not cheapening him, you got to put Big Shot Bob up there, Robert Horry there, as a franchise role player when it comes to those big playoff shots.
Especially in his younger days. We got to see what he's going to do this year, though.
No doubt about it. Vincent, thanks. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, Dana.
A little bit later, Kings coach Reggie Theus is